So I take it you didn't have that tech available for me?
No, I did.
Welcome to Mojo the Movies. My name is Eric, and joining me today is a member of our Cinephiles crew. It's Liam. How you doing?
Not too bad. How are you?
I'm good. So we got to see Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yes.
Very early.
Very early.
Like a week and a half in advance. And so we're going to answer the question, is Paul Rudd the MCU secret weapon?
I would say absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, going into Ant-Man, the first one, you know, I think people were unsure as to how, that was basically the first time that comedy was really a main ingredient in a superhero movie.
I recently rewatched Ant-Man, the first one, and watching that, he seems a bit shaky because he's never really done a role this big. But right off the bat in this movie, you can definitely tell he's kind of more comfortable in like the superhero role, and he's more comfortable with a movie of this size, for sure.
Well, he has more confidence, but we also get the impression that the filmmakers have more confidence in him, and that the audience have grown more comfortable with the idea of Paul Rudd as Paul Rudd, the action hero, who also has that Paul Rudd personality.
Yeah, I think, there's scenes towards the beginning of this where it's like you're watching just Paul Rudd be himself, and it's so exciting, and so like he's just like so naturally charismatic, and I think that drives a lot of this movie for sure.
Well, I think it was inspired casting in the first place. Like when they decided on Paul Rudd to play Ant-Man, who, you know, in and of itself is not the most. It's certainly not an A-list superhero in the MCU, and so you know the whole thing seemed a bit strange, a bit out of left field. But like I said, it was inspired casting, and now that we're on number 2, you know the fear was either they take it too far into the comedy realm, or you know has the idea of doing this lost its luster. But I think they nailed it again the second time.
I had heard that a lot of his performance was, or at least a lot of the comedic aspects of his performance were improv. I can think of a few scenes for sure, like in the middle of the movie, that I was like dying laughing just at his like facial expressions and his mannerisms. And I think, I mean, I don't want to ignore other performances. Like I think Evangeline Lilly is making a big case for why she's going to be a big part of the MCU going forward.
Absolutely, yeah.
Michael Pena is hilarious. I think Michael Douglas is, I mean, he doesn't really have a comedic. Actually, I guess him and Paul Rudd go back and forth a little bit.
A little bit, but you know, he is more of the straight man. And but you know, you mentioned Michael Pena. He's got some great lines in there, and that whole entourage. You know, the Russian crony that he has as well. Russian, or I guess somewhere from that region of the world. So if you think about Paul Rudd as an improviser, as you mentioned, I mean, he comes from the Apatow school. Yeah. And I wouldn't have been surprised if I saw that Judd Apatow was somehow attached to this movie, that they veered off in that direction.
Yeah, I think, I mean, people are still disappointed about Edgar Wright not being attached to this, and I think his stamp is still kind of on this. At least you could definitely tell that someone comedic is behind this movie, and it's so different from anything the MCU has done. I think it feels, I might get a little bit of hate for this, but I think it feels more like a movie, and there's something like kind of 90s or like early 2000s-ish about like it's like a buddy cop aspect of it with like him and the Wasp, and like there's a lot of great one-liners and a lot of great comedic moments, one particularly in a school that I think is hilarious. We were comparing it earlier to One Tiny Rick.
Right. That's a great scene, right? The little, when he becomes quite little. And that's something that we can talk about next, because I really appreciated the effects in this movie. But let's take a look at some of that.
Yeah.
I wish I could fight bad guys like you.
I seem to mess it up almost every time.
Okay, so, you know, I think one thing that we need to mention, often MCU movies are chock full of effects, and it's the most impressive thing, and it's, you know, cutting edge technology. This one wasn't necessarily playing with the technology so much. It almost seemed like a mix of CGI and practical effects. All the kind of sizing tricks were so much fun.
I think it's almost like the antithesis of
antithesis, huh?
Oh my God, I didn't even realize that. To like the Infinity War, where like I watched this and I'm like, the action scenes are so much more like engrossing because it's on a smaller scale, and these sizing effects are so ridiculous. Like the Pez dispenser, which you see in the trailer, I think I've never seen that in a movie before.
Or him, you know, holding onto the bus as it's, or the truck as it's driving down the street.
Him him being big or small is like that's a big part of this movie, and I think it adds a lot to the action scenes.
And what's interesting is that at the end, when they're rolling credits, and I'm not talking about the post-credit scenes, but the actual credits, they show some of the maquettes, some of the kind of models and the way that they used angles to achieve.
Yeah.
I was even thinking, would have been interesting if this were directed by like Michel Gondry, the guy who did Eternal Sunshine
Wes
of the Spotless
Anderson.
Mind. Exactly. It wasn't. It was directed by Peyton Reed, and same guy who did the first Ant-Man. I think he does a really good job. He's got a good handle on how to make audiences laugh, how to keep the pacing was fantastic.
I wouldn't cut a single thing from this movie. I think it's so entertaining through its entire runtime that I think it's what a summer blockbuster should be, I think.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, we were laughing the whole time. The stakes are obviously a lot less important than in something like, Infinity War or any of the other MCU movies.
We were talking about it earlier. Like the motivations of the two, like the heroes and the villains, are so personal, and they're not. It's not like a world destruction type thing that you normally see in these kinds of movies, which is really refreshing, I think.
It's all very macro in the literal sense. And so, you bring up the villain, this time it's Ghost.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because Ghost originally was, first of all, a male character and also was, I think, a foil to Iron Man.
Yeah.
And so now they've kind of transposed this character into the Ant-Man universe, and it's a woman played by, I want to make sure I've got Hannah John Kamen, and she does a great job.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't say, I think that's a complaint that a lot of people have about Marvel is the villains aren't exactly like doing anything new, and I wouldn't say that's the case here. I wouldn't say that like they're reinventing the wheel with the villain here, but I think the villain is super cool. I mean, the effects of like the ghosting through things is really well done. She's great in it. I think her performance is really kind of like touching a little bit because she's
it gets very personal, and she's not hell bent on world destruction. She's just trying to save her ass.
Yeah, trying to save herself.
This is an actress I think we're going to be seeing a lot more.
Absolutely,
we know her from Black Mirror. She was in Tomb Raider and Ready Player One recently. So I think this is really going to launch her career.
Yeah, for sure.
She did a great job. As we said, the casting was quite good. There's even Michelle Pfeiffer. I don't think that's a spoiler because this was in the
marketing, kind of.
Yes, in the posters and whatnot. And so it's a well-rounded cast. Again, Peyton Reed did a really good job directing. He who did a lot of rom-coms, I guess, in his time, right?
But you wouldn't really know it because like this movie is just so different from anything he's done before, other than the first Ant-Man, I guess. I have nothing but good things to say about this movie.
So I think to sum up, a lot of Paul Rudd movies often have these musical references, and this one is no exception. There's some really funny references to Morrissey, and the one song that keeps coming back is the song Get Happy, which in many ways almost encapsulates what they were going for with this movie. It's a feel-good movie.
Yeah, well, I think like right off the bat, one of the first scenes is Paul Rudd singing karaoke, and I think we've seen him on like Jimmy Fallon performing karaoke, which is just beloved. Like,
he did the first ever lip sync battle, I think.
And he's so great at it, and that's when you know that you're in for like such a fun time for like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
And so I think, to answer the question we started off with, is Paul Rudd the MCU's secret weapon? I think in many ways he is, because no one would have thought that he would be such a presence in this universe. No one would have thought that he could own a superhero and a character with seemingly little importance that seems to grow and grow and grow.
Yeah.
So I really think he is going to play a huge role in the universe as things develop. And we can't say anything, but you have to stay until the final credits or the post-credit scene, because he is very much an important part of the big picture.
I think he's going to play a big role going forward in this.
But that's all that we can say for the moment. We don't want to spoil anything. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for joining us. Let us know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks to you, we had to run. We're still running.
Let's go.